Hello, this is Reverend Dore teaching religious science, which is the teaching of the science of mind from a rather nippy winter day in Sarasota, Florida. Today we're going to talk about the lesson of Jacob's ladder according to Reverend Dore. I'm going to take a Bible story once in a while and I'm going to interpret it metaphysically, the way a religious scientist would look at it, or a person who's using a modern mind. This is a great story. It's so famous that it even gives rise to the name of a ladder that goes up and down a ship. It's called a Jacob's ladder. It's after this story in Genesis 28:10-20. And you can look it up if you want to. It's a story of twin brothers. Now, they're fraternal twins because they don't look anything alike. And of course, they did not get along at all. Jacob was good-looking and fair with little body hair. He was a thoughtful lad, given to study and contemplation, and a very serious guy. Esau was hairy, looked sort of like a caveman, was rather brutish, but he was a world-class hunter and farmer, great provider for the family. You know, I never met these guys. I'm just telling you what the Bible says. Now, Esau and Jacob were the sons of Isaac and Rebekah. You may remember that Isaac was the son of Abraham and his really old wife Sarah. So Isaac had been born to an 80-year-old woman, and that was kind of a miracle. Esau was the favorite of the twins, was Isaac's favorite, because he was a man's man, strong, rough, and a good provider. But Mama, that was Rebekah, loved Jacob, as mothers do, because he was kind, nice-looking, and studious. Well, a really bad family feud ensued over who was to take over for Isaac, because Isaac's getting pretty old, as the leader of the tribe upon his death, because one of the two is going to run all the Jews. That's his legacy. Isaac was nearly blind by this time, and he called Esau to him to give him the blessing and tell him he was going to be the leader. But Sarah thought that was a terrible idea, and she shoved Jacob into Isaac's arms, and Isaac mistakenly anointed Jacob instead. Jacob got the blessing as tribal leader that Esau believed was his. You think he was mad? Oh, he was outraged and threatened to knock off his presumptuous brother. Gonna kill him. Mom told Jacob to get out of town. Fortunately, Jacob had sense enough to run for his life, because I believe Esau would have killed him. Wouldn't you make tracks with a big hairy caveman type after you? After a night or two of running through the desert, he was going to see a kinsman in another town who'd promised to shelter him. He was exhausted, and he laid down to rest and put his head on a rock for a pillow. Ouch, that must have hurt. And fell asleep. Now, this rock is going to be real important in a minute, so listen up. In his dream, he saw a great ladder stretching all the way up to heaven, which in those days they thought was just above the clouds, so it really wasn't very far away. Well, the cool part was that there was a steady stream of angels coming up and down the ladder. They were coming up and they were going down constantly. You know, I read that and I said, I guess wings weren't standard equipment for angels yet, because why would they need to climb up and down a ladder from heaven? There's a little contradictions in the Bible like this that kind of make you wonder, right? Well, this was a pretty trippy dream that Jacob was having, and he was enjoying watching the rush hour up and down God's ladder to heaven when God himself yelled down to him and said, "You are my chosen one, Jacob. You will lead my chosen people, the Hebrews, to be known as the Jews from now on. You are my most favored among all my creations, all men. You will build a city upon this spot to commemorate this great moment." Well, this was great news to Jacob, because that's what his dad Isaac had told him, thinking he was Esau, that he was the leader. But now God's confirmed it. So it's a done deal. Dad can't take it back and get mad at him about it. He marks the spot where he had the dream with the rock he slept on, and then he erects a pillar on the spot. Now, this will one day become the city of Bethlehem. We call it Bethlehem. Well, he gets to the camp of his kinsman, where he meets the kinsman's daughter. Oh, Her name is Rachel, and they're crazy for her at first sight. I mean, it's just serious love. And the rest is literally history. There's a side note here. In order to get his cousin to allow him to marry his daughter Rachel, Jacob has to work for him for 7 years for no pay. That's $0 in our money. How many of you fellas out there would do that for your wife? I don't know. Got to think about that one, don't you? Well, Esau, what happens to him? Well, he gives up the chase and marries the daughter of Ishmael. Now, you remember, if you've read Genesis, that Ishmael is the father of the Arab nation. And that's the last we hear of him. Esau disappears into biblical history. Now, do you see something here? Arabs and Jews are first cousins. They're almost the same people. The languages are even very similar. They're about like Portuguese and Spanish. So, they really should get along better, shouldn't they? It's a great story, isn't it? It has all the elements of a daytime soap opera, doesn't it? Is it true? Well, who knows? The only people who might have known have been dead for over 4,500 years. A lot of people try to make the Bible literal, and that's to trivialize it. It's a book of spiritual lessons, ladies and gentlemen. It is not a history book. The facts weren't as important as the spiritual lesson is. So here begins the lesson. Listen up. Jacob represents the higher self, the spiritual human, the divinity in every one of us. He represents the finer arts of literature, poetry, of learning, and study. He's the one who contemplates the nature of the universe and seeks the truth of God and mankind. He represents the feminine energy of peace and love and nurturing. He's a cool guy, kind of a nerd in our terminology, but certainly a good fellow. His hairy brother was covered in red hair. Now, I wondered about that. Don't know too many Jews with red hair, so he must have had some Celtic blood from somewhere. He represents the material man, the lower self, the hunter, the provider, strong, able, brave, constant, loyal. He's also given to righteousness and anger. In other words, he gets mad a lot, and he judges people. Now, he's not much of a deep thinker either. He represents a lot of us, doesn't he? We all have times like that. The real lesson is that every person on this planet has both Jacob and Esau in their makeup to one degree or another. The higher self and the lower self. Male or female, we all have the twins within, but how we manage this dichotomy is how we manage our life. Now we come to the real point of the story. Draw near, those of you who have ears to hear it. Remember the ladder with the angels going up and down on their appointed rounds? The ladder represents different states of consciousness or states of mind that we may inhabit at any point in time. There are thousands of rungs on Jacob's ladder, and the angels going up and down represent our thoughts moving up and down the ladder of consciousness from minute to minute and hour to hour. The higher up the ladder we go, the closer we get to what Jesus called the kingdom of heaven. Now, Jesus didn't mean you went to heaven and died. He meant that you could literally create heaven on earth in your mind. Kingdom of heaven to Jesus was a state of consciousness or mind in which we become totally self-actualized. This means that we can stop the struggle, the toil, and the angst. We now stop worrying about how we're going to live, what we're going to wear, or how we will eat. Remember, he told us to do that? But you have to be in this state of mind to be able to make that work. We can now create all we could ever want or need with a thought, a word, and by wise use of the law of mind action. What's the law of mind action? As you think, so you are. As you speak, you create your life. Life becomes heaven on earth in this state. In other words, when we are at the top rung, when we're at the kingdom of heaven, we have mastered the secret of life on earth. We're in the zone of creation. We live in conscious communion with the Godhead, the great architect, the ground of being that we nickname God. Don't be afraid of the word God. It's only a nickname. It's like calling your dog Spike, We didn't know really what to name this thing that is all that exists, so we just said God. Interestingly enough, dog is God backward, isn't it? How about that? In this state, in the state of being in the highest point of consciousness, we are Jacob. In the Jacob state, facts mean nothing because we know that we're the author of our facts. If we don't like them, we can make new ones. We think and speak our lives into being within this wonderful state. We do it easily and almost instantly. This is the state in which really happy and successful people spend most of their time. Now, don't misunderstand me. You can be rich and be miserable, but a lot of rich people I know are pretty happy. And those that are happy and at peace and understand how things are done, they are in this state. They're near the top of the ladder. The lower we allow our thoughts and words to come down the ladder, the more struggle, the more angst, the more worry we shall experience because we're lowering our vibrational rate. Everything vibrates in the universe. Science tells us that, including us. We feel sorrow and anger, and we become immersed in the world of the material. Not a good place to spend all your time. Now, we bought into the facts. We believe that the facts are the facts. And we believe that life happens to us. In this state, we buy into the great person in the sky version of God. We make a big superhuman in our own image. And we have to plead from this superhuman God to get everything we need. He's angry one minute and he's loving the next, just like we are. What a sorry state our state is in when we're down this low on the ladder. From the kingdom of heaven, we've descended into the world of perpetual victimhood and despair. In this state of mind, we don't get much done without a lot of struggle. Our ego runs our life, and that's not a good thing. And in this state, we represent Esau. Most of us live somewhere between the top and the bottom of the ladder. Very few attain the top, and most of us are not down at the bottom. That would be to be pretty much of a beast. The good news is that you're beloved of God because he or she created you out of itself. And that's really loving, to take a piece of yourself and create another being. Therefore, you and God are one. That means that you can navigate up and down Jacob's ladder at will. Just as you change your clothes from day to day, you can change your states of mind. You really are the master of your fate and the captain of your soul. That famous saying comes from the poem Invictus, but it's a good thing to remember. You are the master of your fate and the captain of your soul. Don't let anybody tell you different. You can change your state of mind and change your experience of life because your life is a direct projection or image of your state of mind. Your goal should be to stay at the top of the ladder most of the time, and if you do, you'll be experiencing heaven on earth. Start today, and you can begin by subscribing to my blog right here. You want to know more? Log on to csl.org, which is the website for the Centers for Spiritual Living, which is what religious science and the science of mind calls their churches. Personally, I just call them churches myself, but I'm in the minority on that one. Look for the nearest center to you and come visit us on Sunday or take a class. Until we're together again, may the light of God shine in your life each and every day. This is Reverend Dore Jacques Patlian saying so long for now. Bye-bye.